Okay, so let's open the Finance Committee meeting at 5:30 PM on whatever day today is, March 10th?
Yes.
Yes,
And
2025.
yeah, let's open the select board meeting at 5:32 PM on March 10th.
All right, minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes from the March 3rd meeting.
I think so too.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous, 600. All right, Board of Health.
Board of Health, so we're gonna start with 512-5110.
Ready? Anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we recommend 114,868 for Board of Health payroll account number 512-5110.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
Make the
discussion?
same motion for the select board.
Second.
We're ready for discussion.
Okay, great. Do you want me to talk or you want to start?
Sure.
Okay, so, Ned, of course, is set, he's got a step increase. And then, the nurse has actually been working more hours than what she was originally budgeted for. It made for a little consternation during the fiscal year because she was not aware that she couldn't work that many hours. So, Ned thought that 18 hours per week was a more reasonable number of hours for what she does. So that's been plugged into this budget, which is the main reason for the increase. And that was with a 3% increase in her rate, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, she's been doing some things on her own time, which I'm not real comfortable with, but like making home visits and vaccine clinics. We didn't have one here at town. We didn't have a vaccine clinic here last year at Town Hall, so I'm hoping she can help arrange that and streamline it a little bit more.
How many hours was she working last year, or were in the budget last time?
I believe we only had 12 hours budgeted for her for fiscal '25. So it is a fairly large increase, but it will reflect more of what she's doing. She spends a lot of time at the senior center, so.
And she's not on the class comp plan, right?
Correct.
So is it a contract with her, or how is that arranged? It's just an agreement. And so the 3%, if she were on class comp, she'd probably get a 2.5% step increase plus whatever we've decided for this year. Okay. All right. And then the Board of Health agent position, it's a different person, so it is quite a bit more than it used to be. So is that more hours? Is that a higher rate? Is it a little bit of both? Is it?
It's a little more hours. There were 2 part-time agents, Val. Bird and-
Wait.
and,
So if I add them together, then it's not anymore at all.
well,
78. Yeah.
might be a little different, but
Okay.
yeah, and our backup agent is covered by Greenfield if I need an inspector as part of the shared services grant, I believe.
Okay. Beautiful. And you do the sewer inspections also, not just the restaurants and stuff.
Right, septic.
I don't have the
sewer.
right terminology. I
Yeah,
apologize, but
Title V, pools, housing, all of it. Yeah, skating rinks.
Okay.
And I'll probably be doing the barn inspections in the fall. Which is
the what barn?
the barn inspections, that's
Oh, the animal
animal
inspector. Okay.
inspections. I call
Okay.
them barn because
Got it.
it's
Yep.
separate.
Oh,
Sure, that's on the expense.
So Ned, just to check, Ann Mastratat, our Taro, she's actually from the public health, the Valley Health,
Mm-hmm.
right? So while she's filling in for
Cindy.
right? So that's the same thing. The Public Health Excellence Grant would be paying for an alternate agent,
That's correct.
right? So there's some, I don't know if it's a savings, not having to pay an alternate agent, or do they get paid by us when they come here?
No, they get paid by the grant.
Yep, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misspeaking.
And I just, it's not really a finance question, but I'm just curious, when you said the barn inspection, Randall, can you just explain what that is?
The animal inspector, it's basically going to different properties that have chickens, cows, sheep, anything but cats or dogs.
So any sort of agricultural production in town is under your bailiwick to inspect?
There's supposed to be like residents who have chickens in their yard also, but in the past, it's been commercial inspections here in Deerfield. But I'm hoping I can get to the residents who have their own backyard chicken coops and things like that, rabbits, sheep, cows.
So I'm just curious, so in Massachusetts, that's your responsibility as opposed to the sort of state agriculture? There's no state agricultural kind of department that does those kind of things?
Not necessarily, but it doesn't have to be the health agent. It could be just hire a person for that period, like they do in Whately,
Yeah.
for instance. But I'm not sure about the agricultural part of it. I'm just walking into that part of it today.
Mhm.
I think the animal inspector is governed by a certain statute, and I think the Department of Agriculture actually broadly oversees that, but I personally believe it with health pretty well, especially now
Mhm.
with the avian flu.
Right.
My question though is on the public health nurse. So if she's putting in a lot of hours at the senior center, are the other towns contracting with her separately, or are they paying any portion of their assessment toward her services?
So, the senior center director was approached on maybe covering some of her payroll since she is at the senior center, and that was a hard no. So, what I did was I included the Board of Health budget into the indirect costs. It doesn't end up being a whole lot that's being charged to the senior center that way, but at least it's something.
Can you explain that in more detail? What Board of Health, like, can you just explain how that works? What you
The-
just said, the indirect costs.
So the indirect costs are figured on certain line items that are, you can't directly charge to, like, the wastewater treatment plant, SCEMS, and the
Mhm.
senior center. So there's certain things like general insurance, there's the collector treasurer's office, the select board office, the accountant's office, that are the expenditures of those offices are applied as indirects based on that particular budget versus the town's entire
I guess that was my question, was whether it, like, is it an estimate of the number of hours that you or the collector or whatever spends on that service? Or
No,
is it
it's
just
just-
prorated
it's just
some percentage?
prorated as a percentage based on what their operations are, plus any grants they have as compared to the entire town. And so for the senior center, it's a very, very small
Okay.
percentage. But
I see.
because of what the nurse does for the senior center, I took it upon myself to add the Board of Health budget, the entire budget, in for the calculation of the senior center indirect costs.
Okay, thanks. I understand that.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
Are there fees associated with what you do? I mean, if you go inspect something, is there a fee that the town bills the whatever business
Yes,
you're inspecting?
For example, a perk test would be $350 for the first 3 hours. There are fees for the permit, all the permitting for the restaurants, food establishments, Title V inspections.
So, well, I guess, yeah, your hours aren't going up, it's the nurses. I was
Yeah.
wondering if there'd be an associate, related increase in fees, but probably not, right?
So,
Thank you.
anybody else have questions?
Hmm?
Because I have more questions, but I can, I don't have to hog the,
I'll just, it's sort of related to that, so I'll just jump in, sorry. So would that be, that income that he's talking about in fees, is that under licenses and permits? Mostly under local receipts?
I believe
For our
it's
income?
under fees.
License and permits, fines and forfeits, fees. Oh, fees
If you look
includes
at the line item.
PEG
for fees-
access, that one includes, okay, so a little bit further up.
Yeah.
In the middle there, okay. So it's just part of those fees.
you can actually get a printout, right, of what, of all the different, so from DLS, you can get a printout of that broken out, like the income we've received in past years from meals, taxes, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if, I just found it not too long ago, but all of a sudden I already
Meals
can't
and
remember what
those
was on it.
tax Are separate, but when it comes to fees, they're kind of all lumped together.
Are they?
And
Okay.
then when it comes to permits, the building inspection permits are now separate from all the other permits, but that's the
Okay.
only separation they have there.
Do we set the fee amount, or is that the state?
We set the fee amount,
When was the last time we increased it? Do
I
you know,
believe
Brenda?
2022.
A couple of years ago.
So back to the nurses' hours. What I heard was that we set the position for 12 hours, but she actually worked 18, so this year we're doing 18. So I'm wondering if the Board of Health have thought about or discussed what the appropriate number of hours are and whether we should, like, it may be 18's the right answer. It may be that we would ask her to step back and do less or whatever.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if we've discussed it as a board. We've talked about it individually with Brenda and, I guess it was a little bit of a moving target when Carolyn was kind of setting up this, pulling away from FERCog, getting her own nurse, using Nacho grant. And I think we've had a little bit of time to see what is paying for what and what the needs are. And, I'm of the mind of Brenda too, that I think that we may need to request from the other two towns, some cost, because I think the best work she does is visiting people in the home, visiting people at town, at the senior center. I know that the senior center has a kind of a a friction with having a nurse there, mainly because, it may interrupt the programming that they have planned, but it doesn't mean that they don't agree with the mission of it. And I think for me as a Board of Health member, and I think of our seniors and the needs they have, especially the ones that are shut in and at home and that she does visit with it, I would love to add more hours. I just know we don't have the money for it. I think 18 she's probably been doing more than that. And I think she was like, whoa, I don't know if it was who was communicating those hours to her, but she wound up working a lot more of that. And so I think the 18 is if we can afford it, is a good number, whether we have to come back and look at it again. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's important to do, I think it's probably the best value that we spend to our seniors, for their, blood pressure checks. She does so much there, but I do think it's worth having a conversation with the other towns and seeing, because she does a lot there, could they afford to add that? I don't know if we've broached that conversation with the towns yet, other than just with,
So Tim has something, then Brenda,
Yeah,
or
so the
Ned,
short
anything
answer
else?
is no, the Board of Health has not had a discussion specifically about this. And I would, a 6-hour increase I'm learning about today. So it's something that the Board of Health should have a discussion about, and maybe we should put it on our next agenda, Christopher, because although I
You gotta
agree
nod.
with everything that's being said about the need for the community, we need to take control of this a little. We don't have a contract. We don't have we have a verbal agreement. So we need to be more responsible about managing this process. So I don't know how anyone else feels, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, one thing I should mention is Cindy is only doing the home visits in Deerfield. The
Right.
only work she does at is
But at the senior
at the
center, she
senior
just kind of sees whoever's
yeah. Yes.
available. Yeah.
I think the other component of this that I've been talking to her on a regular basis when she's in her office is the education part that's going with the seniors as well. So it's not just doing the blood pressure checks and those sort of things. It's a broader range of what she's doing that's probably extending those hours. But I'm in agreement with Tim. I think we need to have a discussion so we have some parameters to work with here.
And I think also it'll give us a better opportunity to have a discussion with Whately and Sunderland, saying, we might be providing 3 hours a week to Sunderland's seniors and 3 hours a week to Whately seniors. I'm just making this up, but it would give us an opportunity to have that discussion in
Maybe
a better framework.
there's an agreement with the senior center that Deerfield, we don't need to solve this now.
Yeah.
Deerfield, I'll finish my comment. Deerfield pays 50%, the other two towns pay 25% each. So maybe if you look at the hours that she spends at the senior center specifically, that may be a something you could apply to it or something, or a start of the discussion.
At least one of those other towns does pay for the public health nurse. I don't know the number of hours or how those, they're allocated. So I guess that's something that would have to be discussed. I just wanted to make a note too that there was a question on Board of Health revenue. So Brenda provides the revenue detail. So they are laid out under the revenue accounts for Board of Health. So if anybody is interested in looking at the breakdown.
Oh, good. Thanks. Go ahead.
So a lot of this kind of rubs me the wrong way, but I mean, it seems like the kind of the right thing to do. I'm wondering if I was going to ask if we should table this, but this is my motion. So I'm wondering if we should just withdraw this motion and give the Board of Health some time to figure out what the number should be. Maybe it's 18, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But I don't like the genesis of this budget item so far. So would you be willing to maybe talk about this at a later Finance Committee meeting after we find out what the Board of Health wants to do?
Fine by me.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion.
Who seconded it?
Is the issue more who's paying for these hours or that there are extra hours? 'Cause it's two different things.
My issue is both. Hearing that, we went from 12 to 18 because there was some sort of miscommunication, I'll call it that, is one of them. The who pays isn't as important, but it just seems like our Board of Health is here and wants an opportunity to talk more about what that number should be. So I think we should do that.
Can I ask, so we're still going to discuss it for a few minutes, even though the motion, I've forgotten who seconded it. Do you want to withdraw your second or?
Okay, I'll withdraw my
But whatever. So the public health nurse also has responsibility for like tracking cases of different, like if COVID or I don't know if the bird flu becomes a problem or whatever, that falls within the scope of what we've hired this person to do, right? Or is that something because that's something the FERCog person did?
Yes, the FERCog nurse Lisa had done that, would manage and discuss with the schools, and then, generally something, most of the time crops up in the school system. The school nurse would have a conversation with our nurse, would also conversate with Cindy. I don't think we've had anything recently, but yeah, something can pop up. Measles can pop up, something can pop up pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
we need to keep on that. And that's generally what that communication would be with our public nurse and our Board of Health agent.
The other part of that as well is the fact that she's in charge of any grants that put out, like the COVID testing, or if there's anything else that needs to be done for the seniors, or if she has to coordinate anything with the schools because of the measles or the bird flu or whatever the case, whatever comes up. So I know that she gets involved in that aspect of it too. So, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts with her. And like I said, we need to find out exactly what all of those are, because
Yeah,
we find out that she does a lot of work.
it's a big job and it's an important role within the community. So I don't think anybody's saying that we don't want a public nurse doing their job, but it's just it feels sort of like
Arbitrary.
it came around,
Yeah, it
like
dev-
the Board of Health should talk about it.
Yeah,
And
it developed
it
out
may
of
be that this is the right number.
no conscious discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and since I'm the one withdrawing it, like I said, maybe the number should be more. I don't know. I think, some of the stuff that you
So
talked
is
about
this,
already.
the same person, is it the same person works for another town too, right? Is it a full-time job altogether, or is it?
No. She's just working for the town of Deerfield,
Oh, okay.
which is why she limits her home visits to Deerfield, because she said the
Right.
Sunderland nurse visits the
Okay,
people in
The people in
Sunderland.
Sunderland.
And I'm assuming Whately has a nurse that
Has
visits the
something that
people in
they do.
Whately. So she has limited her home visits to just Deerfield residents because of
Right.
that. But
Okay.
she's still at the senior center 6-9 hours a week at least, right?
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Does the Sunderland nurse go to the senior center too? No,
Okay.
we know that.
I don't know. I don't know if the Board of Health could speak to this, but I know there needs to be more conversation with the other towns, but has there been any agreement for the Deerfield Public Health nurse to go to the senior center at this point?
So I think, and again, like I said, I've been talking to Cindy quite a bit, and then one of the problems is there's not a place for them to really set up where they are now. It's very temporary. So it's hard for them to set up the clinics and do the things that need to be done. So I think that she got herself in there and could get herself set up. And then to have another nurse come in afterwards and maybe have to change where they're gonna actually set up the next clinic where they might be doing blood pressures, that sort of thing. So I think that might be what the problem is, the fact that they're in a temporary location and they're having trouble when they were at the church, they had a specific place where they could set up and do what needed to be done. In the new place where they're splitting in Whately and in Sunderland, and especially the unit in Sunderland is so small, she could probably do a table and a chair and that would be it.
So that's where her office is now in the.
No, her office is here,
Oh, okay, okay,
but
okay.
this is just for the senior center is what I'm saying. Okay.
The whole reason she's at the senior center at all was that we felt as a Board of Health, that when Carolyn was on, that it was extremely important that this Board of Health nurse, or the town Deerfield nurse, spend time with the seniors. It was critical. Had to be there, had to be spending time. There was pushback from the director saying, like, there's no room, there's no time. But it was something that was kind of really, I mean, it's really where her need is the most, but it's just so inconvenient because there's not a real space and there's not real privacy. So she does hold her office hours here, but she kind of goes where they are and then goes to where they are at home mostly as well. So I don't think I haven't had a chance to talk to her about, because she's been out for a bit, how much time she truly spends there, but it might not be as much as we think, so.
Go ahead.
I'm back to fee revenue again. I don't want to leave nickels on the table. If I have 3 chickens, you're supposed to come in and inspect my facility or coop, whatever you
Tec-
call it? And is there a
technically,
fee
yes.
associated with that?
I'm sorry?
Is there a fee associated
No.
with your coming in to look at my
No.
chickens? No.
No.
Price of eggs.
Yeah. No, there's no fee. I do foresee a problem finding all the chickens in the town.
Right, okay. That was gonna be my next
Well,
question, right?
Last
They got over
year,
chicken tags
um,
instead of dog tags.
yeah, I looked at the inspections from last year and there were commercial inspections. They weren't any residential. They're technically supposed to be residential and commercial, like if a
Thank
sheep
you.
farm.
Okay. That was a lot of discussion for something we're not voting, but I feel like we're prepared to vote on it when it comes back. So
But-
let's go to,
One
Unless-
more thing,
yeah.
though, with the animal inspector position, it's listed under expenses. And if I was to take the position, it would go under my salary, the $2,000 stipend.
so that's a lead into our next,
So I think we should probably just hold off on all of the rest of the Board of Health stuff right now, just, so that could be worked out, right? Is that what you're saying then, right? Okay. Yeah, Dick does the inspections
Right.
right now. He just submitted a timesheet through the end of March, so I think he's planning to be done at the end of March, right? Because he usually submits them 6 months at a time, and this time it was just for the 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're not going to discuss the Board of Health expense, it seems like maybe if anybody has any questions for Mr. Savisky now, so that we don't have to drag him back here a second time.
So we're not gonna, why don't we go ahead and discuss the Board of Health expense also?
We've got him here.
Okay, so that's 512-5400.
So you're suggesting we don't make a motion and vote this evening because that 2,000 could shift over to the salary line?
Correct. If Ned's
Okay.
doing it, it should be in the salary line item.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a 2.16% increase. Are there any items that you feel like you should talk about?
The only item that was increased was the mosquito control by $250. And that was across the board for them.
The mosquito control district charges that fee.
Oh, okay, okay. Got it. I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions on the expenses line?
I would just say, if we have anybody watching from the public, the tick testing is a line item still on here where we subsidize homeowners. We encourage them highly with warm weather coming, when ticks come out. If you have ticks on you, please bag them and mail them to, I think it's UMass is still doing it. Is that right? Yeah. Send them to UMass, and then we get that data back, which is crucial to know what disease load is happening. So please continue that.
Yes, we do that. Is it on the website?
Is it on I think it's on the website. If not,
We'll make sure
it's on the website.
It is on the, yep, under the Board of Health.
So for that, is that just like every time somebody does that, this line item gets charged and we're just estimating that this is the number of ticks that will get sent in? Okay, got it. That sounds right, because I think it's 50 and you get charged 15 if you're in Deerfield. Yeah.
Yes, so is this any ticks that are found?
Generally found on you, not really on your dog.
Okay, that's, that was my question. If you found them in the yard, you found them out, okay.
If you have a blood, if you
You had to remove one from
Yeah.
your skin.
They're
Exactly.
attached,
then
yeah.
Right, you want to get tested, so you know
Right.
whether you need to get prophylaxis.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if they were doing a
No,
general
no,
testing on
no.
it. Okay.
And they turn around quick, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Trevor, I'm
We've been-
confused. Are you saying that the homeowner gets subsidized price back?
The
No.
homeowner pays, they mail it in, they only pay 15, we pay $35. I think it's
Because they know that we're from the town of Deerfield?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, you document where you're from, and
Okay.
we have a deal with them, and then, so,
I just know that I walked one in last year. Like I put it in a bag, went and dropped it at UMass. I don't remember any kind of
oh, yeah, yeah.
subsidy or Deerfield.
When you pay for it, you put your address in.
Yeah.
Well, I've done it online. You
Yeah.
pay for it, you put your
It was online,
address in, and
okay.
the price that comes up is
It's somehow
$15,
related.
15.
I see.
And if you lived somewhere else, it would be a different number.
I might have told him it was a Whately tick, just.
That Whately
Alright.
tick crossed the Deerfield border and
So is information for people to mail in their ticks on the town website?
did we verify that?
We will, but I think,
Yeah,
yeah, pretty sure it's there.
I know there's the ticks are under the Board of Health.
Yeah, and I hand delivered one too, so
Google it, it comes up pretty quick.
Home visits, how do you qualify for a home visit? What, I'm just curious, it has nothing to do with the budget.
You qualify, you can
Yeah.
just call the town nurse, usually it's the ones that are, usually it's, we know are ones that are shut in or can't get out. We have a list of people that, maybe have an operation or something, or home alone or elderly. So we regularly kind of check in with them, and then, our nurse will just go and visit, follow up with them. Really spend some time with them a little bit, and then they can kind of catch is something, going on, did they not see, and are they getting their blood pressure checked, that kind of thing. But yeah, anybody can, but generally it's those who can't get out to their doctors. or
And
whatever.
I think that's fluid too. In other words, you go to the hospital for a certain instance, she'll be coming by to check on you, make sure everything's okay until you get to a point where you feel comfortable, say, I don't need you anymore, that type of thing. So it'd be like, not a home health care, but it would be just checking on you and making sure that whatever had occurred in the hospital is being followed through. And then that way you've got continuity as you go so that you don't end up back in the hospital.
So Ned, if you are able to appear at our next select board meeting on your Board of Health comments, you might want to mention the tick thing. It is on our website. If you go in and search for tick, you get a link that says subsidized tick testing for tick-borne diseases. This is from August of 2023, so we might need to update it with UMass, because this was no-cost testing. And I think since then, we subsidize a portion of it, but yeah, so, yeah, I appreciate that, Ned.
Well, thank you for coming by, even though we didn't vote on anything. We look forward to the updated budget next time. Anybody else have any further questions or comments for Ned?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
My mind is going. On the public health nurse and further investigation on the number of hours, I mean, she's only 2 hours shy of being a benefited employee, so I would just
Yeah.
ask the select board to be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's not interested, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, good point.
Okay.
All
What's
right,
next?
so, we could do the school budgets if you
Let's do
want.
that. That was
I-
what was on our agenda.
I'm going to assume that no changes were made last week because I didn't hear anything otherwise.
They didn't. far as I know. So, Frontier did the public hearing and then they met 2 days later and voted the budget. And I haven't heard, but I assume they voted what was presented at the public hearing. I don't think Deerfield has voted it yet, right?
I think they vote at the end, like around the 27th or so.
Okay.
At least that's what it said on their calendar.
I would be comfortable discussing it and voting it pending the school committee's vote or something, if you guys are okay with that. Or would you rather
Kind of
wait?
Sitting next to David, I'm just wondering if any of David's questions were addressed at the elementary school committee meeting on school choice.
I did ask them about that. She said that the balance right now is about 900,000 and that the expectation is that some of the playground was going to be paid for from that account. So she expects next year for it to be down to about 700,000. The other comment that was made about it was that, and I'm not in the position to argue it back, so I'm just telling you what she told me. The other comment was that we are down to 2 classes per grade in every grade except for 6th grade. Next, like 1 year from now, that 6th grade class will graduate, and at that point, they will probably be down to 2 classes per grade. They will be down to 2 classes per grade in every grade, which is further reduces the number of school choice kids that you have because there's one less class that they're filling up.
So, I mean, it's sort of philosophical question of what our role is with the school budget. Because it's sort of ironic in a way that we go through some of these budgets with not a fine tooth comb like Brenda does, but we go through some of these budgets in detail on dollar amounts that are not that significant.
Right.
And we talk about the school budget without looking at it, it seems to me, very much at all, in terms of just whether we, and I'm just philosophical, as I said from the beginning. I don't know what we feel our oversight should be, since obviously there's a school board whose job is to do that.
Right, but
I had asked, had some emails. I was hoping for, when I was on the committee, you get a nice narrative.
right.
And you know exactly what the plan is, just like we have. You have the sources of income, where money's coming from, various things, and what they're spending it on, and what the changes are this year to next. Like, did we add some IAs? Did we lose teachers, like you're saying, going down to class sizes? I don't know how much of that we should care about, or whether we should be looking at sort of generally what kind of increases do we have, et cetera. My issue with the school choice thing, again, was just, philosophical. I totally think the school should be supported and then some. But they have a large chunk of money that is sitting there in a sort of quote unquote reserve that is way more than the reserve that was there in previous years. It's the town's money. And and we have a lot of debt to pay for, and you could throw some of that on the debt now, so we don't have to pay interest on that forever and ever. So that's just one thing I'm saying. But the other thing is, I just want to I'm not pushing back at all because I don't know the facts. But the same discussion last year, we were told that school choice at the end of the last fiscal year was going to go from 1,016,000 down to 935,000. At the end of that fiscal year, the balance was 1,122,000. So it was almost $200,000 more in the account at the end of the last fiscal year than was predicted. I don't know exactly why that is, but in terms of that question about, are you going to spend it down, or is there some reason we shouldn't spend it down? I don't know. You know what I mean? I just know that now sitting on this committee and knowing all the sort of, pressure points on the town and needs for certain things, it just seemed to me that there should be a discussion about it. Sounds like you've had some information about how that is going to get drawn down in the next year. But that's a big drawdown from end of last year, what did I say, 1,122,000 down to 700,000 is interesting. I don't know what's in there now, Brenda? Because lately, when you've been giving us these monthly sheets, it hasn't been down.
No,
That low.
it was just I thought just a little over 1 million when we met the last time and I looked at it.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't know, Julie, what you meant when she said it was 900,000, whether that's a prediction.
It's what
for-
she said
Yeah,
at the meeting.
yeah.
That
Again, I'm
it
just
it
throwing
was
out-
around, what she said, it was around 900,000. She didn't
Yeah.
give me an exact number, and I
Yeah.
think she was going off of memory,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
Because the other thing is, if there is that kind of a pull down, that should mean that that there's a significant increase in spending. That's more than the
So they
percentage
did,
we're being told,
okay.
unless it's going on to some capital stuff that we don't know about. As it's part of that discussion, which is great.
So part of the, yeah. I unfortunately didn't bring my notes with it, so I'm gonna push back just a little bit.
Sure, I mean, I'm just throwing it out
I
there.
put
so-
out to this committee
Yeah.
the dates that the school committee meetings were and encouraged everybody to go.
Yep.
And the reason we do that is because that is our forum to have the business manager and the superintendent and ask them these questions.
Yep.
And that's the right person to ask those questions of, because
Yep.
they are much more ingrained in it. I did go and I did ask that question. My memory of what she said, but maybe we can ask her again. Maybe I'll send her an email and ask her to send us something that way. My memory is that they use that school choice budget as a buffer. So when they have some expense that was unanticipated, they can cover it with the school choice funds instead of having to come back to the town.
Mhm.
They use it for capital expenses, but they also use it, I'm not going to put this right, but basically that buffer goes both ways. So when they're able to save money, they made the comment, for example, that they're pretty good about their substitute budget. They pretty much don't spend anywhere near what they have in their substitute budget because they're able to cover the classes with other people in the school and rotate things around, and they don't spend that. And when they don't spend that, that's money that they have available to do other things with, and then they don't dip into the school choice account as much. This was my impression with what she said. So I feel like it's just a buffer that they are able to
Sure.
use to smooth what they show to
Which
the
is,
town.
which is great, and
Yeah.
I'm all for having a buffer. I guess I'm questioning the extent of the buffer,
Mhm.
given it's so much more than the sort of $500,000 range that I remember
That it used to be.
when I was on the
Yeah.
committee. And then again, to use your phrase, pushback, if it was a buffer and was used for certain expenses, the end of 2023 fiscal year, the balance was 1,110,000. So it's a great buffer.
Yep.
How much of a buffer do we need? Whose job is it?
Yeah, that's
is
like a
it to-
20+% buffer, right? The
Well,
whole thing is
it's a
5
20%
million,
buffer,
right?
And I guess what I'm saying, Julie, is that there's no variation there. Like, if it's a buffer, maybe it's being used as an account during the year, but it's not like we're seeing something bad happen that year, and so they had to dip into it, right? Because at
Right.
the end of the year,
Yeah.
there was a drop at the end of 2018, I think, but that's years ago. 2022, it was 1.2 million, 21, 1.2 million, 21. I mean, it's just a solid chunk of cash. I don't think we're earning a ton of interest on it.
Just whatever, it is
Well, now it is.
interest that the town of Deerfield, gets, but
But it's less than, these days it's back down, isn't it?
I don't know what account Sarah
Yeah.
has that in, so I
Okay.
can't tell you what the
Right.
interest rate would be, but
It's less than the interest we're paying on debts that we could.
definitely,
Mhm.
yes.
That's all, yeah.
Yeah.
So I really don't, maybe I have a very slight opinion about it, but I'm just sort of questioning do we have any other accounts with that kind of money in it that are sort of used as a buffer, so to speak? I mean, it's really a security for calamity happening to our town budget, so the school can, you know, keep going if they have to level fund.
Yeah.
So,
And I also don't know the different, like E&D is sort of like free cash, right?
It is.
Essentially.
Yes. excess and
And I
deficiency.
don't have a feel for how big their E&D is every year.
And I think they're limited, are they not limited to how much they can keep of that?
And they have
just
to
don't know
push
what
the,
that limit
they have
is.
excess that they have to give back to us, right?
Yes.
If,
Yep.
they have too much, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, and like those school committee meetings are the place to ask those questions.
I do think that they've had access to other funds over the last 3 or 4 years that they were never anticipating, and they come when they just, I mean, I think that they might have an intention to spend some of the school choice, but then they get,
grant.
CPC or something.
yeah, the ESSER money or the rural school money, or, you know, various other pots of money that they then use instead.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they always know when that's going to be coming.
Yeah.
Christopher has his hand up.
Go ahead, Christopher.
I was just gonna I don't know if you want it, but I have the excess and deficiency numbers for this year, and a couple of past years. So this year was around 650,000. And then if there's, I think it's more than 5% than that of their budget, including capital, that has to go back to the towns. And excuse me, actually, that was for Franklin County Tech. Let me pull up the Frontier one as well. Yeah, and so for Frontier, similar. So their E&D was 670,000. So yeah,
Do you have the Deerfield Elementary value?
let me take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it here on the list I'm looking at. I can do some digging and try to get you all those numbers, because I believe they're listed somewhere by year. So I can send that along to the committee.
I mean, the flip side of the debate too is what I sometimes felt, which is, you know, sometimes there's a lot of stress about the school budget in the school, right? Among
Right.
people, teachers, whatever. And I remember thinking, like, why are we making people stress when we could put more money into it easily and still have a very healthy balance? So I'm just throwing it out there that whether it's money that gets spent on the school budget or money that goes towards paying the library debt, some other debt, I just don't know that you need to carry $1 million for a calamity. And I don't know that anybody's been presented with capital expenses that we're trying to save up for either. So that's all. When I feel that we're, not that anybody feels we're giving anybody a hard time, or any budget department head is up here feeling nitpick, but I'm just, you know, we stress on people's budgets, and there's plenty.
At the DES meeting, they did mention that, you know, they're concerned about expenses with the building. You know, it's getting old, it's not getting any younger.
Sure. No, there's always.
But the expenses they were talking about were like $50,000,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
$500,000.
Yeah.
Adding, I'm just back to Jim's notes from that first budget, from the first elementary school committee budget meeting, that they are applying, looks like they were applying at the time, $55,000 of their rural aid funds. But I don't see any other indication that they're applying any other sources of
So
revenue.
I think though they increased that a little bit, right? Because at that meeting, they were above 3%, and then they voted to make it a 3% increase, so they applied a little more.
They basically just decided to take some items that they had budgeted for off the budget because they suspected they were going to have excess cash to pay for them as a result of like teacher absences and stuff.
Oh, okay.
By the way, I did try to attend that meeting, just so you
Good.
don't scold me too much, but I was remote, and it was horrendous service. I saw you were there, and so I
Yeah.
logged off.
Yeah. The one I went to was, there was no remote at all, apparently. So, yeah.
And I just have a question about, is schools school choice money treated differently than, money that we would give the school? So if we gave the school excess money at the end of the year, do they have to give it back? I mean, is it like other budgets where, and is school choice specifically, we don't have control over it?
Yeah, it's theirs to control. So the school choice is a fund, a special revenue fund. And so all of the state money that's given for school choice goes into that fund, and then the school chooses how to use that.
They use it, typically they fund quite a few IA positions with it, and then they fund capital with it, and then they use it to offset budgets, and then they have it as a reserve for, in the middle of the, like if they didn't have school choice in the middle of the year, the town would get hit. If we have somebody with a special education move into town, that they would use school choice funds for, instead of asking the town for money. And I think you're just saying that the delta's kind of too high and should come down. And I know we sound like a broken record, but I believe that is it's all trending in the other direction. And yeah, so if it brought it down to 500,000 or something like that, instead of 700 or 800 or 900,000, that makes sense. So I think they're going to use quite a bit of it for the like you said, the playground, the IA instructional assistants. I think there's like 6 or 7 funded with it, and the reading specialists and all, and then several capital items. And then their capital this year, when I talked to Darius, he said there's only one that he really would love to have, which would be a water pump, circulation pump that kind of failed, I think, at Whately.
Conway.
It was, yeah, and then they have 2 over here to change, so it might be a couple-year program to change that. He said the flooring, everything else on the thing could hold if it needs to for a year. It's not critical, but that was the one request he had.
Go ahead.
Trevor, has the school union and Frontier Regional School District, are they phasing out school choice? Do we know?
No,
No.
They're not.
they are
gonna keep it
not.
going.
So for Frontier, they vote every year whether to do school choice, and Frontier is the beneficiary generally, and they only add most of the school choice that comes into Frontier, I think based on that meeting we were at, was feeding from the elementary schools. And then the other portion where they add students is in 9th grade, beginning of high school, because a lot of kids get pulled off to tech school. And so and then after that, they might just fill in a few spots here and there in 10th, 11th, and 12th if there happens to be an opening. But generally, it's mainly the feeders are from the elementary school, and then after a lot of the classes go. And what I heard from their discussions about school choice is that it would be a dramatically different school if it didn't have school choice. Sure, we would maybe fund a couple less teachers or something like that in classrooms, but we'd have quite a few less choice for the kids. A lot of the AP classes, a lot of the other arts like band, sports, that kind of thing. You just don't have the population to fund those diversity. And then it's like a dog chasing its tail. It just kind of falls apart. Kind of Pioneer had that problem, and it just fell apart. So there's a kind of a happy balance there, and I think that they're at that. And for Deerfield, they're quite a bit more selective, I think, in what they're taking. I think some of the other schools, Conway, Whately, they need, again, to keep the schools going, they need those numbers.
Deerfield only takes enough school choice to fill up the classes that they already have. So if they have a class that only has 13 kids in it, they'll bring it up to 16 or 17 or something.
And they're down to 2, right?
Every grade except for
classrooms.
6.
Yeah, K through 6. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
So this just occurred to me, and I don't know the answer. The town, the school system gets money from students school choicing into Deerfield. When a student in Deerfield school choices to another school district, the town pays that, right?
Right.
It seems like that would be an obvious, balance, offset or whatever? Like, shouldn't the incoming school choice funds pay for the outgoing school students?
Well, it does.
It does,
We
it
have
does.
Way more inflow than outflow.
Yeah, it works to our benefit.
All right.
And it,
But the school choice money comes into the school, the school.
So for
students-
Frontier,
Yeah,
Right.
Frontier's
it's
little-
all at Frontier.
Right.
None of it goes to the town.
Right.
For Deerfield Elementary, you're right. The school
Yes.
choice money comes into the school. The
But
school
comes out
choice
of-
goes out of the town.
One
Yeah,
hand
we
and the
could.
other really is the same.
Is the school choice amount that comes in for pupils that are coming in from other schools, is it compensating us fairly for what our costs are?
No, no.
If
Teachers
you-
and the
hang on, no, no,
pencils and
no.
the,
This is an important point,
It
right?
is.
If you follow the mantra that Deerfield Elementary School is following, where you only add a child to a classroom where you already have the classroom anyway, it's $5,000 per child plus special ed. So if the kid needs any special ed, the sending town pays all of their special ed. So it's $5,000 per child. So if you have a class where you have 13 kids and now you have 15 kids and you got $10,000, it is not costing you $10,000 likely to add those two children. If you're in a position where you are adding classrooms,
Mhm.
then no. If you had a full classroom of 20 kids at 5,000 a pop, that does not cover the salary of the teacher and the teacher's aide for that
Right.
class.
what if you had to add a teacher, not a classroom? You don't need,
Right, right.
but,
But
but
Deerfield
you
Elementary
hit
does
the
not
levy.
add any teachers.
Yeah.
say,
They
say
would-
again?
They would-
Deerfield Elementary does not add any teachers for school choice.
So it's either, if, depending on the number of school choice kids that come in, it's either a new classroom or the student-teacher
No.
ratio gets,
Think about it this way, John.
that's what I'm hearing.
Now, let me give you
No.
another
No.
example. If there were 30 kids in first grade, I think you would probably want not to have one classroom, right? If there were 30, what's the expression?
Yeah.
Deerfield kids. If there's 30 Deerfield kids in the first grade, you don't want one teacher teaching 30 kids, right? I hope,
Not at elementary.
right? You, no, no, no.
No,
I'm
No.
30
trying to take you through
Deerfield.
the exercise. There's 30 kids
30
in
Deerfield
So there's two
residents.
classrooms.
Correct.
Right, right.
So
you
now
could
there's only-
add,
yeah.
You know, maybe
Two.
2 or 3 kids to each classroom because you're only going to
So what
17 or
happens
18.
if there's 6 school choice kids?
But that's what,
They would, they
The
wouldn't.
school gets to decide how
Yeah.
many to take.
Yeah.
Yeah. You decide how many slots are open. There might be
Oh,
two
we don't
slots.
have to take 'em
Oh,
all.
you don't have to take
No.
any.
It's a lottery.
And you
They
can take
choose
them-
how many slots.
One per class and 2 in this class and 1 in that, and none in this class. Yep.
Yeah, in fact, at the meeting, they were talking about appropriate class.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can I, as long as I have the floor?
Go
I-
for it.
I
You
agree.
got another question?
David alluded to the budget. We're looking at a $5.5 million budget, and we don't look at the line items.
So
You
what,
saw-
what I was just
School committee
thinking,
does.
so
Hmm?
I really, I'm gonna push
school
back
committee
again.
does,
You
so-
are welcome to go to the meeting. I
But it-
advertise the meeting, go to the meeting.
And-
But now that I've vented for a second, we can get the slides from Shelley. So what I think we should do is next time we meet, go through the slides from the school committee meetings. It won't be as good as the presentation that you had from Shelley and Darius. But I can go through them and everybody else who has been in the meeting and we can look at that.
And you have,
Both of these, this Deerfield Elementary and Frontier, both are level services. There aren't any new classes,
you,
new
Chief.
events, new anythings this year. There were last year, but there are not this year. So both of these are level service, but I think it's worthwhile to go through the slides that they presented, which gives you the description and a little bit more of a breakdown.
I think we need to do that. I
yeah.
don't think
Yeah, line
saying,
item.
will you volunteer to go to the school committee meeting
No,
here?
I didn't say,
No.
will you volunteer to go to the
No, no,
school
well,
committee
okay, whatever.
meeting? I said, we are holding a meeting on this date and that you should go. And if
Oh,
you
I
have
never
questions about
realized
the
it was a
school
finance-
committee,
I
that's
wasn't aware it was
why.
a finance committee meeting.
they have to. be
Was it
posted.
joint
it was
meeting?
not a published finance committee meeting. It was a school committee meeting at which the school committee people presented, not the school committee people, the business manager and the superintendent for the school presented the budget. And those meetings were advertised because that is our only venue to get them to answer questions about the budget. That's why we advertise the meetings, and that's why you are welcome to go if you want to. We can make it a finance committee meeting too if you want to.
And I think
I think we need to do that.
you can still get the budget with the line items,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, they're all there. It's available if you.
Also,
just
I
do-
Can't
I think it was
always get
recorded.
Shelley and Darius to come
Absolutely.
here to our finance committee meeting because they already go to 5 school committee meetings every month, plus the public hearings, plus everything else. It's excessive to ask them to do that.
Are you done with that?
Yeah.
The part, yeah. Can I just ask Brenda, I'm just curious, just for comparison's sake, do you know what the Frontier School Choice account looks like on average at the end of every year? Like, are they carrying a buffer?
I don't
this-
get that information from Frontier. So
It's a lot higher. We have the numbers.
So-
okay, I'm not,
They have a bunch that they also carry on year to year in their account. Okay.
Yeah.
Can use to keep funds.
So our,
When you say we, I'm sorry, when you say
ahead.
we don't have that,
We don't have-
so in other words, the Frontier has their own account
It's their own
somewhere
district,
that's-
right.
That's in there somewhere.
It's their own
Yeah.
district. Yep, so they have that. We don't have it as a town, like we
and
do
they
for-
have far more choice in than they have choice out.
No, again, I'm not looking for the delta of like, I mean, obviously, the subtext, here, clearly, every year there's choice money that's coming in.
Yep.
And it's being spent, and that's great. That's how the whole system's supposed to work.
Yeah.
There's also this other account at the end of the year, which is the school choice account, like what's still in it?
Oh, you're wondering what the balance
What's
is in
still it?
Frontier's
So
school
when I
choice
asked that question,
account?
I meant, yeah, so what, just for comparison's sake, because, you
Yeah.
know,
So,
if Frontier's got 2 million, then you could argue this is sort of a standard thing. Of course, it wasn't a standard,
Yeah.
you're gonna have that much, but, I mean, I suspect Frontier may not have that.
they don't, and really
And it-
generally, that's how, they used it like to pay off the loan we had. And to zero out our budget the other year. So they use that quite a bit to kind of, again, for all 4 towns, or 4 towns, they used a lot of that school choice money, ESSER money, and other money to kind of zero out the borrowing that we were going to use. But yes, there is, I don't know the dollar amount.
Right, but it would be interesting to get that number.
Yeah,
Because if
we
that
could get that.
number is sometimes not nothing, or
Correct.
100 or 200,000, then they should probably have more of a buffer.
think
But
they have
I think
more.
that would sort of demonstrate that maybe some of this money should get spent on things the school needs,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or, I mean, the only authority we have around this, I suppose, when you ask about, is around whether we approve or don't approve the school budget.
Right, town meeting.
Yeah, well, or
I mean,
here, a little.
You
pressure
could make
here.
a motion to reduce this number by 200,000 and
Well,
expect them to
but this
pay
is why I'm
for
talking
it from-
philosophically, because I think the schools do a great job.
Yeah.
The elementary school does a great job of coming in, working their budget in a sort of whatever we're, I don't know, 2 to
Yeah.
3% kind of range, unless there's a crazy year.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not at all complaining about that.
Mhm.
But again, there's money they could spend on the school to be less stressed out, or I think the town should be spending it on things that we, need to
Need,
spend it
yeah,
on. Like,
I agree.
somewhere, I think we talked, we're gonna throw 200,000 onto one of these.
Perhaps
loans
we should
and
ask
our budget
Shelley,
is-
perhaps we should simply ask Shelley what the reserve, why they're maintaining that large, what they have in mind for their reserve, that reserve.
Do that, and this is-
Yeah, and the answer to that was the buffer business and they're gonna be subsidizing the playground next year and whatever. And that the school choice population is dropping because the size of the school is dropping and that they won't have as much coming in. That is the answer when I asked that question. Go ahead, John.
If they use school choice money for a capital project, does it go through the capital project committee, Mark?
For Deerfield, yes, not for Frontier. I don't think, unless they're asking, well, it depends for Frontier.
Brenda, I'm just a,
Mark, think you were gonna say? You had your hand up a second ago, right?
Yeah, I think I get that we really should be going to those meetings. I try to make them whenever I can. The one thing that's not lost on me though is combined, the DES and the Deerfield part of the Frontier budget, are over 10 million. they're the lion's share of our budget.
They are, yeah.
And they should come in and talk to us. You know, I don't know, I know when I tried to pin Darius down for capital, he, unfortunately had a lot of other meetings going and stuff. But, if this were like a small budget and we had a chance to, take a pass at something that may have been 100,000 and we lost our opportunity, then fine, that's on us. But I find the whole process kind of weird, to be honest. It feels like we have these meetings like super late, and it's like, we only have like this one opportunity that's kind of like a shared meeting where we can kind of ask questions, but we kind of don't get to pick it apart like we do with others. So I don't know. I guess your point's, very valid, but it's $10 million out of what is it? What are we at? Like 21 million or something this year? Whatever our total expenses are going to be, but it's a huge number.
Yeah, it is.
And
It's
we
a
should- we
huge,
should
it's
talk
the
about it
lion's
a-
share of our
yeah.
budget.
Exactly. I think we should talk about it some more. And, maybe we do this, better next year. I think it would be kind of unfair to try and haul like Darius and Shelley in right now. But next year, at least, if we can plan a little bit better, not saying that your planning was wrong, bad, but mine certainly was. And, see if we can talk about it with them more. Maybe we find that, and I hope we find, frankly, that every single one of those line items is well justified, but it's such a huge number. I think we have, the kind of the duty to give it the same scrutiny we give everything else, if not more.
Well, tricky,
I agree.
the tricky part about that, of course, is that the school committees are tasked with,
Not our budget.
going through and sort of, like, they're the sort of experts, I suppose, or they're the elected folks, actually, from the town about what the school's priorities should be in fashioning a budget. And my understanding of how it sort of has worked is they have a real sense of the finance committee and sort of what the finance committee wants or, or is looking for. And that's what I mentioned, that there's that real effort to sort of stay in that 2 to 3% range, which they seem to do. So I'm just sort of suggesting, I don't know that it'd be great to have them in to talk about some of the philosophical things, of course, but in terms of attacking line items for them,
You're not gonna.
that, that's a philosophical discussion about priorities, and is that our role?
Yeah, I don't know
Or
if
we
we need to
just
pick apart
say-
every line item. I'm
Right.
sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
No. But I mean, it's, yeah, if their budgets aren't out of whack, which they're not, in terms of not running, I mean, some poor towns, I guess, are like 10%. Whately, Frontiers, actually, Whately's Elementary, I think I read in the paper, is over 10% increase this year for some reason. But my real issue is just that the amount of money that's in that account. It's a lot of money for a small town. That's all. Right? And there's things you could do at the school or things you could do. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of their kids will go to the
So
library.
The school committee, to tailor on to what y'all said, though, the school committee is responsible for making sure the school is spending responsibly, but I feel like we're responsible for weighing, like, they're interested in the school. They're not interested in the public health nurse or the EMS or the treasurer or whatever, right? So it's sort of our responsibility to weigh that across the full.
Absolutely.
board.
But I'm just saying they kind of know to stay within a global number that the town is probably only going to increase its overall budget by a certain percentage. And
Right.
they generally are trying to stay within that.
If I can just interject, it sounds to me like one of the things that you're saying, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if that number is artificially high, if they could spend 500,000 on not asking the town to pay that 500,000, that we would have 500,000 to put into OPEB or to put into some other thing.
Yeah.
And,
point,
and
absolutely.
Yes.
so I agree that maybe we should have a philosophical discussion with the school committees and say, look, how do we want to look at the budget? Is it fair to keep a lot of money in reserve for the chance that something catastrophic might happen? When something catastrophic might happen, maybe we use catastrophic stabilization fund money
Yeah,
because we
general
didn't leave it in the
stabilization or
school to begin with.
And again, to be clear, I think it's great that there's a buffer there.
Oh,
think
yeah,
it's
I do too.
necessary. I
I'm
want to make sure I'm
just,
making that clear that, but whether it's 1 million or 500,000 is the question.
right.
would it perhaps make sense to try to arrange a joint, I don't know, 3-committee joint session with the school committee, finance committee, select board, at some point, like in the fall, when they, before the budget crunch, planning crunch really gets going?
And at that point, what would we have to say besides Prop 2.5 says 2.5%, so keep it to 2.5%?
Well, but I mean, that
Frankly,
might be a
it's
good
like,
time to look at like line items and stuff like.
Or the philosophical question of, okay, let's just make up a number. You've got 1.5 million in pots of money that are hidden somewhere that are not reflected in this budget. And so explain to us why you feel that's correct budgeting, and is there another way to think about it? And, I'm with everybody.
so we,
School's the most important thing you can do for your kids, is just to educate them.
yeah. So we could, like, I don't think we're gonna get Darius and Shelley to our meeting, but, we could
School
invite
committee?
the school committee chairs or
Exactly.
somebody from the school committee to come.
We're gonna, I agree with everything that's been said, with the exception that I don't think there's anything artificially high about the balance in the school choice account. I think that it's just a matter of allocation and how those funds, the existing funds are used. But, we're going to continue to have questions about declining enrollment. This year was
Yes,
a big
yeah.
year on that. We're going to continue to have questions about that. So I think looking to the future and really having conversations with whether it's the school committee chair or the administration, which, by the way, I know Christopher, Brenda, administrators here attend several meetings a week, especially during this time of year.
Yeah.
So I do feel for the school administration, they attend a lot of meetings. But during budget season, when your budget is
Is this high?
when we have a budget going before the entire town for approval, I think it does warrant a broader discussion.
Yeah.
There-
So one comment before I forget, which is vaguely related to what you just said. At the April joint school committee meeting, they're going to have somebody come and talk
Thank-
about regionalization
Thank
for
you.
the elementary schools, which I'm very interested in going and listening to, but,
That was my comment. I'm so
Oh,
glad
is
you
it?
brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, was
Should
April 11th?
all go.
I don't
Oh,
have it
it's
in
okay.
front of me. It's their April joint meeting.
Yep.
And, I will find it.
For
and-
all of our collective reference, I believe that all these budget hearings have been recorded, so I'm sure there is a link to the video recordings of these meetings. If I can find them, I'll share them.
Okay. The public hearing for the elementary school, they were having difficulties and they did not record that one. But the other one, the one the month before where they discussed the budget should be.
Please come to the regionalization one. I think that's going to be fascinating to hear what other
Yeah,
people
I'm
have
very
done.
interested to.
Do we have a date for that?
I could look it up. I'll look it up and let you know as you move on. Yep.
So, being the new guy here this year, going through, I did go to Frontiers. I didn't make it to the elementary school. And the information that they had given us during those meetings was very informative as to what they were doing, what was going on. I think I kind of agree that if you can get, and I would say, going with Darius and with whoever, is running the funds, prior to getting into budget season, they can predict or can maybe even come up with what they're doing and what they need the money for before we do it. And then we get into this part of it. We basically have an understanding and then go back and attend those meetings that the schools put together. And then at that point, you've actually got a reference to work off of to figure out where the schools are going at that particular time.
I really want to avoid any kind of, certainly town meeting stuff about this, or even any vote here that's forcing something. I really would love it to come from the philosophical conversation of a recognition that that account should be drawn down over budget seasons by them. So, yeah. Anyway, are we doing the budget?
So how about here's a proposal. We skip Deerfield, we skip Frontier. Next time we meet, we will bring the slides from their presentations and talk through what they presented at the meeting, and we will invite the school committee people to come to that meeting if they can. And so we'll go to Franklin Tech. No, just somebody from the committee to. Yeah, okay. You guys good with that? We'll do that. So let's do Franklin Tech.
So Franklin Tech is 320-5410.
April 8th.
I will, April 8th?
April
I'm
8th, sorry.
What
April
time?
8th for that
6
meeting, the
p.m.?
regionalization meeting.
It is,
At Frontier.
PM. All school committee meeting, I think it would be at Frontier in the library.
Yeah, it is.
Usually in the library at Frontier.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
April 8th.
Yep.
I will move to recommend the sum of $598,849 for account number 320-5410 Franklin Tech Assessment.
Second.
Make the same motion for the select board.
Second,
So Franklin Tech actually came and talked to us, and they've got 13 member towns, so. Any discussion on this? They came and talked to us and gave us detail to this meeting. They gave us a detail and a breakout, yeah.
Which is good because I attempted to attend their meeting via Zoom and it was completely incomprehensible.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Up, down, or no? Okay, all right.
So I would just add, Franklin County Tech School is having a meeting on the 12th at 6 p.m. There's a meeting can be remote as well. Bob Decker sent me the agenda, and they'll have a public hearing on school choice at 7:15. They also doing an audit, I think. Just to give you an idea, if you want to attend one of their meetings, I could send you all link.
I think we had our chance, I think, to, he came here and went through a whole, yeah. And not to, just to point out that this is a huge drop. This
It's
particular,
because the number of kids dropped.
yeah, the
So
particular,
it's a 3% increase in their budget. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah.
might have, you might have missed that. He came like in person and presented the whole thing.
I sent Julie the link if you wanted it. to share
Oh,
with us.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll send it out.
but
So are you registering your vote as an
it's
abstention?
more than $60,000 savings from last year.
Okay.
So that's 501, that passes.
Is there any discussion on the select board?
None.
Okay, all those in favor?
Troy McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hill, GI.
Okay, Franklin Tech Debt Service.
320-5800.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a a second?
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
I had a question. Do you know why it's up? I would just thought maybe it would start dropping versus, I mean, it's only up $600,
They have an equation that tells you every year who pays how much of it.
of the capital.
Yeah,
It's not a.
and, yeah.
And I think some of that is Deerfield has a higher per capita income than other towns.
That makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay.
Is this debt excluded?
It is not.
It's not, okay.
Am I reading this right, Brenda, too? If 3 out of the last 6 years, there were declines, and 3 of the last 6 years, there were increases, well, including FY '26? Yep, okay.
Any discussion?
Just a reminder that Russ, when he was here with his presentation, did explain that they're beginning the process of the facility study to build their new school. So that's something we need to look to in the future.
Yeah. Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Against? Abstaining?
Any discussion of the select board?
None.
All those in favor?
Chair McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Alrighty.
All right, so, we were into the 600s last week. The next budget that we hadn't looked at yet would be for the Recreation Department Director salary, and that is 634-5110.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend a sum of $72,517 for the Rec Department Director salary, account number 634-5110.
Second?
Second.
Make the same motion for the select board?
Second.
Discussion?
Okay, sorry, I have a horse that's colicking, so,
Oh, no.
don't mind me, I keep getting a little bit distracted. No, Bill's taking care of it. So, Sue is,
The Boston City Council ever says that.
100 years ago.
That's right.
Also, should you go? Like, a horse colicing's bad, right?
It-
Like, very bad?
It can be,
Yeah.
but he's just not finding the medication, and he's in contact with the vet, so.
Not like a baby where they cry.
No, it's more like a
Yeah.
stomach does
Yeah.
this, yeah.
It's our old guy, so. So Sue is retiring at the end of August.
Oh,
And we thought it would be important to have a little bit of money in there for a transition. So Christopher and I met and talked about it and thought that a couple of weeks no. In fact, Sue wasn't even sure she needed a transition, only because she felt that whoever was going to take her job was going to change it all anyway. But I think it's important for them to know where she's at and to be able to make that decision as to what they want to change. So we were thinking a couple of weeks should be good with her to do that. So
Her comment was, no one ever gave me any help.
She might have been the first rec director, though.
Yeah, she's.
So they probably wasn't one before.
Yeah.
apparently there's a few people already interested, so
Oh, is that
that's
right?
a
Good.
good thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So is
Is it
there,
intended to be a full-time job going forward?
You know, we just recently increased the hours to 37 and a half a week, right? And she felt like that was certainly better. I don't know that it covers all the hours that she puts in, but she seemed fine with that. We can certainly change that.
Well, I wasn't recommending it go up.
No.
I was wondering if it, yeah,
It's
I don't
just
know.
after work hour. It's not like.
Yeah, and you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
maybe,
see that, but
I was gonna say, maybe it starts out with what we're paying Sue for. And then that person can make that decision for the next budget season as to whether they
Yeah,
felt like
yeah.
it should be increased
Decrease.
or
or
decreased.
decreased or
Mhm.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they could.
Go ahead.
Well, she's gonna be getting paid through the end of August. It seemed okay to leave it in there in case that we have to hire at a higher rate, because it seems like we have to most of the time anymore. I'm sure it will depend on what qualifications the person has coming in, how much experience.
So Brendan, if we hire somebody at a lower rate, that's not going to be an issue, or is it going to be an issue?
No.
So, I mean,
If we hire them at a lower rate, it'll just go into free cash at the end of the
Okay.
fiscal year.
So, I mean, it just puts that buffer in there, is what you're saying?
And not that this is necessarily the time, but who's running the hiring process for the rec department? Is there, is the, like, is Sue hiring somebody, or is that the town administration? or-
Christopher, you have a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Tim, it's on the list. We gotta get through the town accountant first, and then we'll get to the rec
All right,
director.
well, all right. I thought it'd fall on us. I just wasn't sure.
Yep.
My pockets are full of it, so I can hand off.
Any discussion? Anybody? Feels like a lot of money to me for a 10% increase for a, I don't know, for recreation.
I know she works way more hours than this, and she has an unpaid assistant too.
Yeah, we haven't paid her husband
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yep.
That's right.
So there's that, and I know that she's also like buying like the kids like pizza and cupcakes. And I used to coach baseball, and you know the amount of work that she put in was.
She does a lot, and it's all like after hours and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. Okay.
It's just normal step, isn't it? I mean, the increase, the salary increase, and then
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
there's
it's
the
just a normal step
and then
increase, and then the 2,500
transition is
for the
probably-
transition.
it's probably
Yeah.
4
So-
or 5.
Brenda, does she have an expense account where, again, you were
She-
saying about this stuff, but
She has a revolving fund where all of the revenues from all of the programs go into, and then the expenditures come out of that. So, yeah.
I don't know how much of that covers what she's actually spending money on.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know if it even covers baseballs, but
They
yeah.
don't even want to audit her books.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure it
Yeah,
covers
baseball.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the price of baseballs. It's like eggs. But never mind. Yeah, yeah.
Well, she always has money in the account, and it's usually pretty comparable with the previous year. We did, what was it, maybe 8 years ago, we moved that from a 55D to a 55E and a half, so that she could carry the money over, because the 55D didn't allow anything past 10,000 to carry over. If the select board wanted to push that. And so it got moved into that, and it seems like she's been carrying around $30,000 in that account. And then she also has a donation fund. So, there are donations that are made, general donations that she then, I mean, she's purchased computers and programs through those funds, and has always kept them at a decent balance, so.
So I have a question. I know that there are limitations on what the revolving fund can actually fund through what either it's in a regular revolving account now, not recreation revolving.
Correct.
So my question
Sorry,
is, if she
53.
always carries money, could these transition costs for very part-time overlap be taken from the revolving fund instead of put on the budget?
I believe they can. 53E&a half does allow payroll through there, I believe, right?
It was just a question. If no one cares, I'm not making a motion on it. I just thought it might be a different option than putting it on the budget.
I think it's an interesting idea. But
Did you say the revolving fund carries some funds year to year generally?
The revolving fund does, yes.
And it doesn't go to free cash? It just stays in the fund?
It stays in the fund.
Do we know roughly how much?
What's that?
Do we know roughly how much?
Well, like I said, the balance has been around 30,000. You know, she's,
could handle it, it's just depending on.
right.
Yeah, probably could. I mean, this $2,500 probably could.
30,000 is in the account at the end of the fiscal year.
I want to say so, yes.
Yeah, so,
I can't
so
tell you
there's,
for
so
sure,
there's
but I
money
think
coming
so.
in, it goes higher, than money goes out based on all the fees that are coming in and out. So I mean, yeah, it's great for a new director to come in and have a little fun to be innovative with, but that sounds like 2,500 is pretty easy. Yeah. Here we are again, talking about little bits of money.
Christopher, you had a comment?
Oh, I was just going to mention, so that revolving fund was authorized by town meeting and it's in our bylaws. And so it just describes what you can spend money on, and it just says activities and expenses related to providing recreational activities. So that's the extent of it.
So what the heck? I'll make a motion to reduce the budget request by 2,500 and recommend that the 2,500 be spent from the revolving fund should the transition costs be necessary.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, so just the complications around, I'm assuming the transition is for transition payroll, right? It says payroll.
Right.
Yeah, so what are the complications that are gonna create a problem for the town accounting department doing payroll out of a revolving fund? Is it gonna take a whole bunch of time for 3 weeks of work? 3 weeks of pay or 4 weeks of pay? Or I'd just be curious about administratively what kind of hassle we're talking about here.
I would defer to Brenda, but I think that it would basically be to report on your timesheet the fund that you want to be paid from.
That's correct. Yeah.
I think that, like, however much money we can keep in that fund for a new director to invest in gaps and that they identify in the program and stuff would be good. I wouldn't want to take money from whoever's coming in. They might have to, purchase a bunch of new equipment or something. So I don't particularly want to do this.
I think for the select board, I maybe I would just maybe ask the question, we could ask and then come back to it. But from Sue does she care where it comes from?
So if the new person were hired at a rate less than what Sue is making now, then it would be a moot point because you wouldn't need anything
That's correct.
for transition costs. So this transition cost would only be if the person were hired at the same or higher amount than her current salary.
And just to clarify a third time, we're carrying about $30,000 in the revolving fund, you said, right?
That's what I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, 28 to 30,000, something like that.
Okay.
Seems doable, pretty simple.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Are we allowed to ask whether Brenda has any major objections to any of these things?
I wouldn't.
You're totally neutral on it?
I'm neutral on it. I would just, a little buffer in the account is always kind of nice in case you don't have as many participants in programs or, you know, I'm sure they have to make adjustments to the fees and so on and so forth. So, for $2,500, I'm sure that's fine.
It probably fluctuates through the year also, depending on where
does.
you are in
It
the,
does.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? So we are voting only on the motion to change the bottom line to $2,500 less. All those in favor? All those opposed? That passes 4-0.
So
Um,
should we wait until you're done and then we'll make a new motion?
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have a motion, an amended motion on the table for the total rec department director salary line item at $70,017, $70017, which is 2,500 less. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes 5-1-0.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up
Of
question?
course.
Just procedural, how it all works. Is there a rec committee?
There is.
Okay, there is, right? Yeah,
Yep.
so there's a body that sort of works with the director and overseeing policy, priorities. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We know someone on it.
Well, I was wondering that, but yeah, good. Good.
There's no budget. There's only, the new person's could be hired in
No, there's no budget.
effective September 1st.
I don't think there's official training they have to do or dues or anything that they have to spend
Oh,
money on.
This
Oh,
one needs to
so,
be
and would that committee have a role in hiring?
I agree with.
Probably not.
their vote. Well,
I don't know.
That's me.
I guess, I would just suggest, given the amount of children's activities, right? I mean, it's a huge proportion of the rec department's activities with kids
Yeah.
stuff.
She's leaving.
That
August
maybe
31st.
someone on the
Okay.
committee push,
I mean,
or that the selectmen, if they were
Yeah.
listening,
I mean, yeah.
would move to have a parent or a teacher just show up for a hiring committee when you're hiring the rec director, maybe? I'm not sure how that's gonna, how, you wondered how the hiring process is gonna be. I was just suggesting, given the amount of kid stuff that's involved,
Mm-hmm.
be a good idea to grab some willing teacher to show up to be on the hiring committee, or someone
That's a
from the
great
rec
point.
committee, rec committee
Coach.
itself.
That's a great point.
Coach would be cool.
Yeah.
Phys ed.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So just for the record, I think the rec department and committee should be commended because I feel like we have a very robust recreational stuff going on and they do a nice job of doing that.
And willing and dealing with like Deerfield Academy and letting us use their facilities. There's a lot of stuff that they do that's more than just keeping activities going.
Yeah.
The Deerfield baseball kids, for instance, would get to have a couple weeks ahead of everyone else,
Okay.
you know, when the kids were on spring break and we got to use the field house. So there's a lot of cool things that Sue does. So very, very happy for all of the time that we've had with her.
So, yeah, I agree. Select board agrees. We're going to withdraw our previous motion. I'll make a motion to approve the Recreation Department Director salary account 6345110 at $70,017.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second.
Any discussion? There's no change from last year. All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous, 6-0.
Any discussion from the select board?
None.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Right, so then how about the Veterans Day, Memorial Day expense, 692-5800?
Make a motion to recommend the sum of $2,500 for the Veterans Day Memorial Day expense account number 692-5800.
Make the same motion for the select board.
Second.
So you can see the committee has not requested an increase for many years. They do end up often dipping into their donation account, and their donation accounts are not keeping up. So they felt like it was important this year to increase that to 2,500 to cover the parade and all the things that go with that. Yeah.
They purchase grave markers, the bronze grave markers from this account as well. Oh, so-
Yep, flags.
Okay.
They did have another account that they could use for some of the grave markers, but that's now gone.
Many thanks to all of our veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably things get more expensive.
So they must hit a point then where they said, hey, we can't spend any money. Like if they want to buy something for the parade.
Well, I don't know that they've gotten to that point yet, but
Getting close, I think.
yeah. Because they buy flowers, they buy water for the participants of the parade, they buy, I don't know what else.
The
but-
memorial wreath.
They get the
flags
wreaths that they
handed
put on the
out.
different monuments and stuff
Yeah.
too, so there's,
I understand.
Oh, stipend for the buglers, sorry.
Yeah, it's just coming from the donation fund.
Oh, it does? Oh, there is. a stipend.
Correct.
Right.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
Any further discussion from the select board? All right, all those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Before we proceed, it does occur to me that it might be useful to post on Deerfield Now or something, mention that, you can donate to the Memorial and Veterans Day Fund at
Yeah.
Yeah.
website or address.
Those markers, I was looking at them, committee was talking to me last year, so I went and looked them up. They're pretty expensive for them, the markers, so that would be something that maybe could kick off
So what,
a campaign for that.
what would the address be to make donations? Is that on the town website?
Find out. It was John Sis had done it, but I'm not sure if they have a new address for that, for them.
Paul
Usually
Olszewski's doing it,
Paul
yeah.
just brings in the check, like from the Polish Club and other organizations and people that donate usually give the money to him.
But, if we could encourage more people to donate.
Right. We could find out from Paul.
Yeah, there's also some of the veterans that are involved in that committee as well, that we could work with them on that.
Yes.
So, let's go to the FERCog core.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the FERCog core assessment at 830-5400.
8:30.
Move that we recommend a sum of $41,463 for the FERCog core assessment, account number 830-5400.
Make the same motion for the select board.
Second,
A decrease from last year. If I remember right, they had gotten more grant revenue last year than they had intended, and they actually gave us $35,000 back, that ended up in our coffers for the end of the fiscal year. So they're very, very conscious about making sure that the towns are not being assessed more than what they actually need.
I sit on the chair of the council, and they just do amazing work. It's a great organization. It's money well invested for sure for all they do for our region and our town. I just do want to just take this moment to mention that they will be bringing a charter change to all towns that make up the FERCog. Every town meeting has to pass it. It's pretty small bookkeeping changes, just language changes, nothing Nothing major, a little bit of, things have changed a lot in the 25 years since they've organized, so they're just small changes, but there'll be full language on our warrant. You'll see that coming up.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Any select board discussion? All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
So, can we take a little break and I can tell you, you had requested last week that I find out what our Veterans District Assessment
Oh, yeah.
was. Okay. So every town is required to have a Veterans Service Officer. So this is intended to save all of the town's money that are participants by providing that for us. They take care of all the Chapter 115 benefits for the veterans. They find other sources of revenue for the veterans whenever they can so as to limit the amount that the towns are spending. But this does pay for their budget, and it's based 50% on the equalized valuation, and I think 50% on the population. Greenfield covers, I think they said 56%. Greenfield is paying for all of their software. It was just recently that they started making the other towns pay for some of the benefits of the employees. So the towns are paying for 44%, the other towns besides Greenfield. Veteran Services, yep.
Is our agent, is the Veterans District agent, does he do outreach in each of the communities? Does he spend any time in each of the communities doing outreach?
Okay, good.
Not our person, but they do have somebody that comes and meets with people here at Town Hall for any veterans that need service or need help with anything. They hold office hours here, so they'll meet in the conference room. But our representative just attends the meetings and votes on stuff, but doesn't do the actual outreach. They have a staff person that comes and meets with them here.
I'm glad to hear that
Yep.
there's somebody actually physically coming.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and his point was, we have a lot of veterans in our community, and so we're seeing that we're paying one veteran, but they're covering a lot of services for the other veterans that we're not seeing. Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Did that
you mind-
answer the question well enough for everybody? Okay, great. Do you want to do the reserve fund?
Okay, either that or sewer.
Oh, okay.
What do you wanna do?
We can do sewer. We can revote sewer.
So we have sewer, and then we have reserve fund and a couple other,
OPEB and,
okay. Let's take before we do anything, next week, we're not meeting. The week after, we have a meeting on Monday, and then we scheduled a meeting on Wednesday also in case we needed the time. So next Monday, we had on the agenda capital. Do you think capital will be ready to talk about by then? A week from Monday?
A week from Monday, it is possible. I will know more after tomorrow.
Okay.
All of the capital requests that are outstanding will be reviewed tomorrow, ideally.
Okay, so we're gonna go through schools, which will probably take us some time, capital, and then that'll do us, and then we will need to do, look at the budget as a whole, and then do all the warrant articles. So I'm kind of feeling like we're in decent shape and that we don't need that Wednesday. You guys are good with that?
You're not
the 24th.
Next week, we don't meet at all. Monday, the 24th, we will meet. We'll do schools and capital.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wednesday, March 26th, I think we're gonna cancel.
Because we keep meeting every Monday thereafter anyway.
Right, right. But we have to get through all the warrant articles still and that kind of thing, and we don't want to go right up to town meeting. That's what we're discussing.
Yeah.
We haven't done it yet, but we're about to. Everybody's good. Brenda, you think that's good?
I think so. I'd sure like to know, how quickly we can get these union contracts, wrapped up. But I know Christopher's working on it and, he knows that we would like to have something soon.
Any comments, Christopher? On progress on those?
We're working on it.
Working on it,
So
go ahead.
Can we just keep the meeting? Because it's a lot easier to unpost than it is to post.
Good. All right,
I was
we'll
about
leave
to
it
say-
there. A week from Monday when we have our meeting, we'll see how well we're doing and wait. And okay, so it is still on for now.
And then we'll wait to see what John says. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Do we want to, at 7:20, do we want to push through and do all the remaining items? There's maybe 6 left. 7:30, 7:45, I think we might go to. You guys feeling strong?
No, I mean, I would just say nothing good happens after 2 hours in any meetings, but
Yep.
so
All
I
right.
advocate for ending, but whatever. Go with the flow.
Sewer's already been voted, but there's a change, right?
Right.
Great.
So we shouldn't
What
have
you
a lot
got?
of discussion.
Right. Please.
Okay.
Let's do sewer.
All right. So if you look at the sewer payroll,
New one, right?
so the only thing that's changed here is that we now have a DPW superintendent. And 1/6 of the DPW superintendent's payroll is always charged to the wastewater treatment plant. So that number has changed just a little bit. And then, down lower,
So I haven't found it on here yet. What line is that?
The very first line.
Very first line. Thank you.
Yep. And then down towards the bottom, workers' comp, we just had our audit, and paid for our, well, we had the audit in the fall, but they didn't bill us until a couple weeks ago. And the, workers' comp had gone up drastically for the, wastewater treatment plant. So I just increased that another $500 just to cover it better. So those are the only 2 changes on this page.
I move that we recommend a new sum of $485,496 for sewer payroll, account number WWTP-SAO. So,
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second.
Discussion?
looks like an increase of $2,114. Seems pretty sensible.
All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Any discussion, select board?
None?
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, so the next page is the wastewater treatment plant expense, the sewer expense account. And the only thing that changed here was I had a chance to put together the indirect costs. And it had been left in here at 73,700, which is what it was last year, but it's actually 86,500.
And these are the benefits?
Yeah, right. What's that?
And I'm sorry, what are the indirect costs again? Indirect expenses and benefits?
In indirect costs such as the cost to do payroll, the cost of the,
Okay.
you know, the,
Captured.
yeah. Yeah.
So is this, all of the accounts that have administrative expenses on them, they're all changing? Or just this one?
No, these are just the indirect costs. So I had
Yeah,
figured.
that, I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. So, but there's indirect on like South County Senior Center and whatever.
Yep, and the South County EMS had that figure in it. I had this since the middle of
Oh, okay,
of
okay.
February. I just didn't want to give
Just
it to
this
you
one we
until
hadn't
I
done.
had the new highway superintendent in there, so, yeah.
Got it. I don't think we have a motion. Do
I
we have a
don't think
motion?
so either.
We don't. Move to recommend a sum of $894,300 for the sewer expense account number WWTP-EXB.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
Discussion?
So for non-sewer users, that's gonna be reflected as a decrease in the amount of money they have to spend, right?
No,
No,
it has no impact on non-sewer
I'm thinking
users.
75, no. But it's income to the general fund, right? Or not a credit.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You're right. Sorry, I was thinking about the loan.
Yeah, it's a funding source for those types of expenses.
John?
John did.
Anybody else? Nope. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Any further discussion from the select board?
None.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
So the sewer debt service is unchanged.
That is unchanged.
The sewer enterprise fund summary sheet is changed. The bottom line does.
Right. So the only thing that changed was the, the expenditures and the expected revenues. This represents an increase of like 2.7% between 2025 expected revenues and 2026. Yes.
So do we voted this before,
You did, yes.
mainly because of the use of retained earnings. We might as well go ahead and vote the new sheet just to be consistent. Anybody want to make a motion for the sewer enterprise fund?
So I'll move to recommend, expected, I don't know how we want to break this down, expected revenues of $2,099,618 and the expenses that are outlined on the sewer enterprise fund, allocation sheet.
And the retained earnings?
And retained earnings.
Do we have a
Second.
Any discussion?
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
Now any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Trevor McDaniel, aye.
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Next.
We can vote some more things, or if you want to look at the revenue and expenditures that I provided tonight with the most updated information, we could do that.
You know what? Let's just do that and then not vote anything else and wrap it up.
Okay. So if you look at your new revenue sheet, the things that changed from last time is that we now have a governor's budget. So that was plugged in for fiscal '26, and that reflected $132,000 increase. And the indirect costs on the second page that we are getting back from the senior center, the wastewater treatment plant, and the EMS had changed. So you come down to, if you leave 200,000 on the table for free cash to carry us into the next fiscal year, that gives us a revenue of $20,636,848.
Brenda, this doesn't allocate any of the free cash to capital, correct? Or
It just says if we leave 200,000 on the table that we aren't going to use, this is how much we have available. So if you look at your expense sheet,
Yeah.
your total expenditures come to 20,400,000. So in a nutshell, we have 200,000 to spend on capital.
Ooh.
I did increase our need for snow and ice to 75,000. I had it at 70,000. I don't think 75,000 is going to cover it either, but I have plugged in 2 people for Smith Voc, and right now we don't know of anybody that's going to Smith Voc, but we don't have the deadline for that hasn't even come yet. So we can't even ask Darius about that until towards the end of March. So it is possible that there's more here for capital than it's showing at the moment.
We are going to push the front loader to next year. So there's some hope.
I think you have to wait until the new public works person is on board before
In
you
all seriousness.
buy anything for the public works department. Yeah. I mean, I personally would be open, like if there's something they desperately need, to doing it this fall as a part of a special town meeting. But
I was gonna say, I met with him today. He's pretty excited about the Freightliner.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So we will meet 2 weeks from today. We'll do schools, we'll do capital, we'll do all these other little line items, and we'll talk about whether we need to meet that Wednesday or not at that point. Oh, I have one more thing, sorry. I did receive, just to acknowledge, I did receive a letter on the senior center from Beverly King. So we
Yes.
have that.
From who?
Beverly
Beverly
King. Yep. Every select board member got
Oh,
the
I
same
see.
letter. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the form letter that the senior center handed to people and said, here, send this in. So Beverly did.
Okay.
Oh, the same.
Acknowledge the receipt of that.
Alright.
Probably everybody else has one too. There's a box in here if you're looking for where it is. Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
do we have a second?
motion
Those
to
in favor?
adjourn. All those in favor?
Joe McDaniel, aye.
Any
Camille
people
Gio.
not want to adjourn or what? Vote.
2 abstains.
I think we got 2, 4, 5. All right, that passes finally.